The Home Pros Radio Show.
I'm Tommy Donovan with RIC Home Inspections, and this is the Home Pros Radio Show podcast. Ask any professional builder and they'll tell you that one of the biggest challenges they face is managing the large number of skilled tradespeople that come and go at specific times during the building process. This challenge opens us all up to the possibility that things could be missed or accidentally changed along the way. This is why many savvy home buyers and even some home builders enlist the expertise of a certified home inspector that can step in independently and identify potential issues early on before they have a chance to become larger or even more dangerous problems in their homes. In this episode of the Home Pros Radio Show podcast, Shane and I discuss the critical new construction checkpoints that should prompt you to take a closer look at how things are progressing on your project. We've included some photos of issues we commonly see when inspecting new construction for our clients. You'll find them in the show notes of this podcast. Be sure to check out these visual aids as we try to help you ensure that your project is moving forward as planned.
So we have a question. It's from Kim in Malden. She asked this very poignant question. I'm building a home, and it has been recommended that I have a pre-drywall inspection performed during the building process. Why is this important, and what are common issues that are found during this type of inspection? Good question. There are a number of issues that can be found during the pre-drywall inspection, and they're different than what we would find in a final inspection or your common home inspection that someone like I would perform. Because there are different things to look at. In fact, Shane, you could probably expound on this a little bit. There are three main phases in which, when you're building a house, you want to have inspections done. Mm-hmm. Tell us about what those are.
Well, your first part is it's basically your footings inspection. You know, that comes at
foundation.
It's foundation. But what they actually inspect here is the footings, how deep they are and how wide they are, and make sure it's to clay. You know, because obviously, even if it's 8 inches deep, 8 inches wide, if it's in sand, it's not going to hold eventually. So it has to be to solid soil and all that. But that's the first one. Then your next, and this is the part that always gets me, and this is one of the reasons I definitely think a home inspector inspecting during these phases is a good idea. Your next inspections are your mechanicals, which is done after. I mean, you have an inspection when they check the depth of the footings, and then the footings are poured, foundations laid, house is built, all the framing and everything, and then all the electrical, HVAC, and plumbing is installed before your next inspections. So this is the next section.
There's a lot that happens.
There's a lot.
Probably a majority of the home is built during that phase.
Yeah. Every bit of it. I mean, all the framing and all is done. So this is your next phase of the inspections, which is your mechanicals and then your framing. And some jurisdictions don't do the framing until the insulation's in, because that's when they inspect the insulation also. So by this time, half of the framing's covered up with insulation when it's being inspected. All the outside walls, you can't really see them that well. And then you have your final inspections at the end.
So the second one that you mentioned would be the pre-drywall, is what a lot of folks refer to it as. And this is what Kim is asking about. So you have the process where your foundation is in. That's been looked at. Then you've put up all of your framing. You've put your plumbing lines, electrical lines, HVAC, done everything but the insulation and drywall. This is the time to catch this portion of the home inspection, or have someone come in and look before the insulation's put in. Is your pre-drywall. Now, that brings us to
the RIC Home Inspections photo from the field,
which you can see on Facebook.
I know what I'm doing.
Did you see that? We got a couple of pictures here that I have from a pre-drywall inspection that I've done. And have you been able to identify the things that are missing from those photos? And that kind of gets to the answer to Kim's question. She's like, well, what do you look for during a home or a pre-drywall inspection? Well, two things right there are pictured, and they're related to the electrical lines running through the framing. What happens is you've got your framing installed, and the framing carpenter leaves, and then it's time for the electrician to put in all the outlets, light fixtures, and all the other electrical that's needed. They're going to run the wires. So what do? just like the plumber has to do with his plumbing lines, is you got to drill through the framing in order to make that happen. So one of the things that we look for when we go through the pre-drywall are proper shock and fire safety methods. Or actually, I should say, was the wiring run and the other components installed with fire safety and shock hazards kept in mind. The top picture there is a picture of an electrical line running through a stud, it's a jack stud underneath a window. And the issue there is that the hole that was drilled is a little too close to the facing of the stud. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, if it's right up on the edge there, whenever they do go to install the drywall, there's a decent possibility of a drywall screw going into that wire there.
Yeah.
If it was a plumbing line, it could be even a bigger issue. The electrical will probably tell you earlier. The plumbing line you'd find out later.
That's it. I've heard it a lot of times where people will they'll have moisture issues during the construction process because they put the drywall in and they find out there's a leak in the wall. Mm-hmm. Well, in this case, what happens is you put a half-inch sheet of drywall on there, and the drywaller inserts his nail or his screw. If that electrical line is too close to the facing of the stud, there's going to be a shock. There's going to be a short, an arc, possibly even a fire. So what you want to do to protect from that is, what was the solution there?
Nail guard.
Nail guard?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And those are like metal plates that have teeth on them. You just hammer right onto the stud. We had a question, why doesn't the city inspector look for this? They do, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, no one's 100% on. Believe it or not, I might miss things from time to time, but it can happen. So it could be that. It could be that the city inspector's already been out, and then maybe there was a change.
Another wire added.
Yeah,
hey, we want to add a receptacle
added.
here.
So, that's one of the things we look for, and that goes true for plumbing lines, too. If the nail guards aren't put up, you can actually end up putting a nail or a screw through a water line, which ain't good. Another thing, lower photo, and this kind of gets into kind of what we were talking about with Brett Hovis with A1 Insulation about air sealing your home and controlling air movement through your home. If you're looking at those electrical lines, what you're looking at basically are the lumber that's running horizontally. Those are your top plates of a wall structure, and then the lumber that's running vertically, those are your studs. Okay, so we're running electrical wiring from a room up through the ceiling into the attic space. And if you look real closely at those penetrations where the wiring goes through the lumber, they're not sealed. And we don't just want to put normal caulk in those areas. What do we want to put there?
It's a fire-rated caulk. Yeah. To stop drafts. You don't want, because obviously oxygen is one of the key components to a fire. So if a fire started in that wall, it would suck all the oxygen from the attic and just keep feeding it. So, there's fire stop caulk.
That's to slow the spread of fire and also to actually keep attic air from being drawn into your home, which is air that we don't necessarily want, especially with the temperatures attic air can be, especially this time of year. Mm-hmm. So, we want to have those areas anytime we transition from one floor to another. If we're going from crawl space to the main floor or first story to second story or second story to attic, we want to seal everything up so that we can keep things contained. Yeah,
every top plate and bottom plate should be sealed if there's penetration in it.
So that's one of the things we look for in a pre-drywall inspection, Kim. So that's another item. What are some of the other things that we would look for in a pre-drywall? How about improper notching and boring?
Yes, you see that a lot.
Yeah,
especially in a crawl space. Or under the floor, because, and I'm not here, well, I guess I am sort of pointing fingers, because you have the framers come in and build the house, then you have, and usually it's the HVAC or the plumbers, because they have pipes and ductwork, things that are larger that can't just fit through any area. The electricians can usually get away with it because they are running wires that are much smaller. But especially plumbers, wherever the toilet is, many times there's a joist under where that toilet falls if it wasn't laid out or mapped out in the beginning. And then when they're drilling that hole or cutting, they'll just cut it out. And they forget or just don't tell the builder. So then that it never gets reinforced. It never gets headered off or moved or another one added. And it happens. And the building inspectors don't generally crawl in the crawl space to look at all of that under there. So I think this is one that will really benefit you to have that home inspector actually look at it.
And we don't want the plumbing and HVAC guys to think that we're picking them out or singling them out, if you will, because that contractor or sub might have gone to the builder and could be an oversight. The builder might have said, "Hey, I need you to take care of this, Mr. Framing carpenter," and it just doesn't get done for one reason or another. See, that's the thing. The process of building a home involves so many people and so many different specialties. But a lot of times folks are so focused on what they have to get done that they're not thinking about how it affects
everything else,
the next person.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's nice to have. It's kind of like you go in and you find a home that you love. I always say I would never inspect my own house again because you go in and you have other things on your mind and you're not maybe thinking as clearly. And you have a situation where you're building a house and you bring that third party in to just look at everything from a unbiased point of view, if you will, or someone who's detached emotionally. They can take a more objective look at things. So that can usually be a big help.
Yeah.
And help find all these things. Any others that we want to mention here? Improper notching and boring. Anything that just doesn't line up properly. A lot of times with a stick-built home, you're not dealing with engineered joists and trusses and things like that. There could be an oversight where we're lining up our joists offset from where a wall needs to actually transfer that load down to the foundation. Same goes through, we were talking about notching and boring joists. It could also happen in the top plates and bottom plates.
Yeah, you see that quite a bit.
Yeah, you might see a portion of a top plate taken out because they're trying to get the laundry duct from downstairs up and then out of the house, and they take out part of the top plate.
And the line sets, they always cut it for the line sets, push it in and just throw a nail guard on there to hold it in. That happens.
Nail guard, yeah. That'll keep it together.
Your vents, your plumbing vents go through the top plates if it's a larger pipe. That a lot of times it takes the entire stud
See,
out.
the thing is all of these things could be there, and then the drywaller comes in, puts the drywall up, and then no one knows that it's ever there until you're 4 or 5 years into the house and you start noticing the floor why is the floor dropping right here in the hallway or something like that? So better to catch it at this stage of the game. It's a lot less expensive to address, easier to take care of. You don't run into issues down the road. So that is the long answer to your question, Kim. I appreciate the question. It's a good one. Phase 3, of course, is the final inspection when everything is done. And then that's just like your typical home inspection where we go through and check everything. And again, it's always good to have that done, even in new construction, because you never know what could have been changed or moved or displaced during the building process.
To help illustrate our point, we have one example to share from an issue that we found on a new construction home inspection that was performed just days before one particular client was closing on his home. Take a look at the photo of the heating system that we included in our RIC Home Inspections photo from the field and see if you can figure out what's missing. As we explain, it's quite a critical component that, if not found, would have left our eventual homeowner exhausted.
Interesting photo from a new construction house that we had been in a couple of weeks ago. What do you notice about that furnace? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with this picture?
Something didn't get
installed.
Something didn't get finished. The flue pipe obviously hadn't been ran.
Yep, that's it. We actually had a listener, John Kronig, who actually responded. We need to actually not only applaud Shane, but John, who, thank you, our live audience is joining us this morning. They nailed it. The flue pipe's missing. Now,
they said something about a flux capacitor or something.
Well, see, isn't that like from Back to the Future?
Yeah.
I was going to say. But anyway, with this furnace, this is a big deal. This furnace doesn't have a flue installed, a pipe, a vent pipe, exhaust vent pipe. Why is that important, Shane?
Because of fumes would be one of the big, huge things. If not, you're just releasing the exhaust into the attic space, which would never be a good thing.
Yeah, it was interesting because I was up there checking out the system. I pulled that cover off. The furnace fired up. It was blowing all this hot air, and it was almost as if I could smell it. It was like blowing the carbon monoxide in my face. I was like, let me get out of here before I'm getting dizzy.
Just fall over in that.
But can you imagine? This is new construction, so they're buying the home. And, if they didn't have an inspection done, they would have no idea that was, they were literally closing in like a couple of days.
Yeah.
The builder assumed that the heating and air contractor had done everything that they should. I'm not sure why the county inspector didn't see it. So this homeowner would have moved in and would have been like,
what's that smell?
May not have been waking up.
Yeah.
But no, that's a serious thing. You're talking carbon monoxide. If it penetrates your house, that's something that becomes deadly. Another footnote on this one is to add a carbon monoxide detector to your house so that if something like that were to creep up on you, it's there.
And now we hope you're more prepared to take a proactive approach to building your next home the right way. For additional help, we recommend contacting a certified home inspector in your area who has experience in evaluating new home construction. Simply ask for details regarding the pre-drywall and phase inspection services that they are able to provide. Thank you for spending your time with us on the Home Pros Radio Show podcast. We hope to be with you again soon. Simply subscribe to our podcast for the latest notifications on our newest episodes as they're released. And if you found this episode helpful, please feel free to share your sentiments by leaving us a review. Your feedback is very much appreciated. For my co-host, Shane Hips with Closing Contractor, I'm Tommy Donovan with RIC Home Inspections. We'll catch you next time on the Home Pros Radio Show podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Home Pros Radio Show. If you have a question for the Home Pros, visit us online at homeprosradio.com, where you can contact us directly and also learn more about the topics and guests we bring to you each week. It's the Home Pros Radio Show online at homeprosradio.com or on the radio at 94.5 WGTK, The Answer.